What are you doing standing out here?
I'm waiting for my sister. We're meeting for coffee.
You've been standing here a while. I need to see some ID.
I just arrived. Here's my driver's license and my FBI credentials.
Well, anybody can buy these online. Turn around. You're under arrest.
Officer, you have my federal credentials. The FBI field office is 15 minutes away. Call and verify.
You can make all the requests you want in jail.
Officer Derek Harding was 34 years old, with 12 years on the force, when he handcuffed a man outside a coffee shop in Lakewood, Washington. The man had shown him federal credentials with a phone number printed directly on them. Harding never made the call. He had 17 prior complaints of racial profiling, all dismissed. He was confident, experienced, absolutely certain of his authority. The body cameras captured every word, every ignored warning, every missed opportunity to verify what the man kept calmly telling him. What Harding didn't know, as those handcuffs clicked shut, was that he had just arrested Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Williams of the FBI's Civil Rights Division, the man who investigated people exactly like him. The wrong person. On the wrong day. With cameras recording everything. And 43 minutes later, when the FBI Seattle field office mobilized in response to an agent distress signal, Harding's 12-year career had already flatlined. He just didn't know he was already dead. Marcus Williams had spent 15 years earning his reputation within the Federal Bureau of Investigation. At 42, he held the rank of Supervisory Special Agent in the Seattle field office's Civil Rights Division, a position that demanded not just investigative excellence, but an almost preternatural patience when confronting humanity's worst impulses. His career had been built on cases involving hate crimes, police misconduct, and civil rights violations across 3 states. He had testified before congressional committees, trained hundreds of law enforcement officers, and helped draft federal guidelines on bias-based policing. On January 25, 2024, Marcus took a rare personal day. The case files could wait. His sister, Angela, had been asking to catch up for weeks, and he had finally agreed to meet her at The Daily Grind, a small coffee shop she loved in suburban Lakewood, Washington. He arrived at 12:25 p.m., parking his sedan legally on the tree-lined street. The neighborhood was quiet, well-maintained, predominantly white, a demographic reality Marcus had long since stopped letting bother him. He was early, as always, so he stood on the sidewalk outside the cafe, checking emails on his phone while waiting for Angela to arrive. Officer Derek Harding of the Lakewood Police Department was cruising through the area when something caught his attention. A black man standing alone outside a business, apparently doing nothing. To Harding, this triggered an immediate, visceral suspicion. Despite the fact that Marcus was simply standing peacefully, bothering no one, Harding pulled his cruiser to the curb. "Excuse me, sir. Can I ask what you're doing here?" Marcus looked up from his phone, his FBI training immediately assessing the situation. He recognized the tone. He had heard it in dozens of body camera recordings, read it in hundreds of complaint files. But this time, he was on the receiving end. "I'm waiting for someone," Marcus replied evenly. "Meeting my sister for coffee." Harding stepped closer, his body language assertive, confrontational. "You've been standing here a while. Somebody called in a suspicious person loitering." The statement was a fabrication. Body camera footage would later confirm that no such call had been made to dispatch. Marcus, with years of experience reviewing false arrest cases, recognized the lie instantly. But he remained composed, controlled. "I just got here 5 minutes ago, officer. I'm not loitering. I'm waiting." Harding's expression hardened. "I'm going to need to see some ID." What Officer Derek Harding did not know, could not have known at that moment, was that he had just made the most expensive demand of his entire career. Marcus reached slowly for his wallet, his movements deliberate and visible. He had trained other FBI agents on de-escalation techniques during police encounters. He had written portions of the Bureau's guidance on interacting with local law enforcement. Yet here he stood, being treated as a suspect for the crime of existing while black. He extracted his driver's license and, alongside it, his FBI credentials, a leather bifold containing his badge and official identification card. The credential clearly displayed his photograph, the FBI seal, and bold text reading, Supervisory Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation. He handed both items to Harding together. Harding barely glanced at the FBI credentials before his face twisted into skepticism. "Is this real?" Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the professional battle against personal indignation that he had waged countless times, usually while reviewing other people's cases. "Yes, officer. I'm a supervisory special agent with the Seattle field office." "Right." Harding held the credentials at arm's length, as if they might be contaminated or counterfeit. "Anybody can buy these online." The statement was absurd. Federal credentials contained sophisticated anti-counterfeiting measures, holographic seals, and unique identification numbers. Marcus gestured toward the badge. "Officer, there's a verification number on the back of that credential. You can call the Seattle field office directly. The number is printed right there." "I'll determine what I need to do," Harding said, his voice sharp with authority. "You just stand there." Harding returned to his patrol cruiser, leaving Marcus standing on the sidewalk. But instead of calling the FBI Seattle field office to verify the credentials, a process that would have taken less than 3 minutes, Harding simply ran Marcus's driver's license through the police database. The result came back immediately. No warrants, no criminal history, not even a traffic violation. The record was spotless. Marcus Williams existed in the system as exactly what he claimed to be, a law-abiding citizen with no criminal background whatsoever. Harding stared at the screen, then at the FBI credentials lying on his passenger seat. The verification number was clearly visible, printed in raised text. A phone number for the Seattle field office was embossed on the back. He ignored both and returned to Marcus with his hand resting pointedly on his duty belt. "Tool." Harding approached Marcus with the swagger of a man accustomed to unquestioned authority. "I'm not satisfied with your explanation. I think you need to come down to the station to verify who you are." Marcus felt the situation slipping into dangerous territory. He had reviewed enough false arrest cases to know exactly where this was heading. He drew on 15 years of training and experience, keeping his voice calm but firm. "Officer Harding," Marcus said, reading the nameplate now, "I am not required to go anywhere with you. I have provided you with valid federal credentials. I am not committing any crime. I am standing on a public sidewalk waiting for my sister to arrive." "You're being argumentative," Harding shot back. "That's suspicious behavior." "I'm being factual," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference. I've identified myself. I've explained my presence here. I've committed no crime, and you have no reasonable suspicion to detain me." Harding's jaw tightened. The casual encounter had become a contest of wills, and he was losing. Rather than de-escalate or verify the credentials, he reached for his radio and called for backup. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Angela asking where he was. He pulled out the phone slowly, showing Harding the screen before typing a response. "Dealing with something. Be there soon." He had no idea how catastrophically wrong that prediction would prove. Within 3 minutes, 2 additional patrol cars arrived. Officers Samantha Rodriguez and James Mitchell emerged, their expressions curious about what kind of situation required backup for a man standing peacefully outside a coffee shop. Marcus immediately recognized the shift in dynamics. 3 officers against 1 civilian. His FBI training kicked into overdrive. He adjusted his stance slightly, positioning himself so that all 3 body cameras would have clear sight lines to his face and hands. His palms remained visible, empty, and non-threatening. Every movement, every word, Every gesture was now being calculated for the permanent record these body cameras would create. Marcus understood something these officers did not yet grasp. This footage would be analyzed frame by frame, word by word, by federal investigators, civil rights attorneys, and eventually, a horrified public. "What's going on, Derek?" Rodriguez asked, approaching her colleague. "Suspicious subject," Harding replied, his voice carrying the confidence of certainty. "Claims to be FBI. Refusing to cooperate." Marcus turned to address Officer Rodriguez directly, recognizing that she might be his last chance at a rational resolution. His voice remained measured, professional, the same tone he used when testifying in federal court. "Officer Rodriguez, my name is Marcus Williams. I am a supervisory special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Seattle Field Office, Civil Rights Division. I showed Officer Harding my federal credentials approximately 10 minutes ago. I am waiting for my sister to arrive at this coffee shop. I have committed no crime. I have been completely cooperative. I am formally requesting that you verify my credentials with the Seattle Field Office before this situation escalates any further." Rodriguez's expression shifted. Something in Marcus's bearing, his precise language, his calm demeanor cut through the narrative Harding had presented. She reached toward Harding's shoulder, her voice uncertain. "Derek, maybe we should just call and verify." "I'm handling this," Harding snapped, cutting her off with barely concealed anger. It was Officer James Mitchell who sealed all their fates. He stepped forward, his hand moving to his own handcuffs. "If he won't come willingly, we make him come." Harding's face broke into a smile, vindicated. "Turn around, sir. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and failing to provide adequate identification." Marcus felt the moment crystallize around him. He had a choice: physically resist and risk violence being used against him, or comply and trust that the system he had served for 15 years would correct this injustice. The irony was not lost on him. He had built his career on documenting how often that system failed people who looked like him. He chose compliance, but not silence. "I am clearly and audibly stating for the record that I am a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation," Marcus said, his voice projected clearly toward all 3 body cameras. "I am not resisting arrest. I am complying under protest. This is a false arrest. You are violating my constitutional rights and federal law." Harding moved behind him, wrenching his arms backward with unnecessary force. The handcuffs clicked shut, tight enough to hurt, tight enough to leave marks that would photograph well in the civil lawsuit to come. Marcus continued speaking, ensuring every word was captured. "Officer Harding, you currently have my FBI credentials in your possession. The Seattle Field Office is 15 minutes from this location. I am formally requesting that you contact them immediately to verify my identity and status as a federal agent. You can make all the requests you want from a cell," Harding said. What none of the 3 officers knew was that Marcus's FBI-issued smartphone had an emergency feature built into the operating system. During the arrest, as Harding had twisted his arms backward, Marcus had managed to press the side button 3 times in rapid succession. The phone sent an automatic alert to the FBI Seattle Field Office. GPS coordinates, timestamp, and a simple message that would mobilize the full weight of federal law enforcement. Agent in distress. The cavalry was already coming. Tut-tut-tee. The patrol car ride to Lakewood Police Department headquarters took 11 minutes. Marcus sat in the back seat, hands still cuffed behind him, watching the familiar streets pass by. Harding drove in silence, his earlier bravado giving way to something that might have been doubtful, but looked more like stubborn pride. Rodriguez followed in her patrol car, her expression troubled. Mitchell brought up the rear, seemingly satisfied with the arrest. At the station, Marcus was processed like any other arrestee. His belongings were catalogued: wallet, keys, wedding ring, watch, and the FBI-issued smartphone that had already sent its silent scream for help. Harding placed the FBI credentials in the property bag without comment, without verification, without calling the number embossed on the back. Marcus was led to a holding cell, a small room with concrete walls, a metal bench, and a toilet. The door clanged shut with the finality that had ended freedom for countless people before him. But unlike most people who found themselves in this position, Marcus knew exactly what was coming next. He sat on the bench and closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. 43 minutes, he thought. That was his estimate for how long it would take the Seattle field office to respond to his distress signal, verify the situation, and make contact with Lakewood PD. He was off by 2 minutes. At the FBI Seattle field office, Special Agent in Charge Patricia Anderson had been in a budget meeting when her assistant burst through the door, tablet in hand. "We have an agent distress signal from Lakewood." "It's Marcus Williams." Anderson's face went pale. Marcus Williams was one of her most respected supervisors, a man with an unblemished record who had never triggered a distress signal in 15 years. If Marcus had sent the signal, something had gone catastrophically wrong. She pulled up the alert on her screen. GPS coordinates placing him at the Lakewood Police Department, arrested 41 minutes earlier for obstruction and failure to identify. "Get me the Lakewood Police Chief on the phone," Anderson said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Right now." Chief Robert Carlson was reviewing departmental overtime reports when his secretary informed him that an FBI special agent in charge was on the line, demanding to speak with him immediately. He assumed it was regarding one of the joint task forces Lakewood participated in. He was catastrophically wrong. "Chief Carlson, this is Special Agent in Charge Patricia Anderson, FBI Seattle Field Office. One of my senior supervisory agents has been arrested by your department. I need him released immediately." Carlson felt his stomach drop. "I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding." Anderson's voice cut through his attempt at diplomacy like a laser. "There has been a misunderstanding, Chief. By your officers." Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Williams was arrested outside a coffee shop approximately 45 minutes ago, allegedly for loitering and obstruction. He presented his federal credentials to the arresting officer. Those credentials were ignored. He requested multiple times that your officer verify his identity with this office. Those requests were denied. He is currently in your holding cells. I am sending a team to your location right now. I expect my agent to be released before they arrive, and I want you to understand clearly that a full civil rights investigation will follow this incident." Carlson's hands were shaking as he hung up the phone. He immediately pulled the arrest report from the system, his eyes scanning the details with growing horror. Marcus Williams, 42, arrested by Officer Derek Harding for obstruction and failure to identify. Property inventory listed FBI credentials. He called down to have the body camera footage uploaded immediately. When it appeared on his screen, he felt physically ill. The footage showed everything: Marcus's calm explanation, his presentation of credentials, Harding's dismissive response, Marcus's repeated requests for verification, the arrival of backup, Rodriguez's attempt to de-escalate, Mitchell's push toward arrest, and Marcus's clear, audible statements that this was a false arrest. The timestamp showed that Harding had never once attempted to call the FBI Seattle field office, despite the phone number being clearly visible on the credentials. The entire encounter, from initial contact to handcuffs, had been captured in high definition from 3 different angles. Carlson grabbed his jacket and headed down to the holding cells personally. He had been in law enforcement for 30 years, and he knew when his department had stepped into a disaster. This was not just a false arrest. This was a federal civil rights violation, captured on video involving an FBI supervisor. The door to the holding cell opened. Marcus looked up to see not Officer Harding, but Chief Carlson himself, his face ashen. "Agent Williams," Carlson began, "I cannot begin to apologize." Marcus stood, his voice cold and precise. "Save it for the deposition, Chief." Within 6 hours of his release, Marcus was sitting in a conference room at the FBI Seattle field office, surrounded by colleagues who looked at him with a mixture of outrage and sympathy. The body camera footage played on the screen, and with each viewing, the room grew quieter, angrier. The FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility opened an investigation within the hour, not into Marcus, but into whether the Lakewood Police Department had violated federal law by unlawfully arresting a federal agent. The legal framework was clear. Interfering with a federal officer in the performance of their duties was a federal crime. While Marcus had been off duty, his status as an FBI agent was a matter of federal law, and the deliberate refusal to verify his credentials could constitute obstruction. 3 days later, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division sent a formal notification to Lakewood. They were opening an investigation into potential patterns and practices of racial discrimination within the police department. Marcus retained the law firm of Thompson & Associates, specialists in federal civil rights litigation. His attorney, Sarah Thompson, filed a federal lawsuit under 42 U.S.C., paragraph 1983, the civil rights statute that allows citizens to sue government officials for constitutional violations. The complaint ran 37 pages and was devastating in its specificity. But the lawsuit went beyond just the January 25th incident. Thompson's investigators had done their homework, submitting public records requests that unearthed Derek Harding's complete personnel file. What they found was damning. 17 civilian complaints of racial profiling filed against Harding over 12 years, every single one dismissed by Internal Affairs as unfounded or not sustained. The discovery process became a nightmare for Lakewood's defense attorneys. Internal Affairs files, which the city had tried to keep sealed, were pried open by court order. Text messages between Harding and other officers were recovered from department servers. The messages contained racial slurs, jokes about arresting black suspects on pretextual grounds, and references to the neighborhood where Marcus was arrested as keeping it clean. A statistical analysis conducted by an expert witness revealed that Harding arrested black residents at 3 times the rate he arrested white residents in identical situations: loitering, suspicious behavior, failure to identify. The pattern was not just clear, it was mathematically undeniable. The depositions were brutal. Rodriguez testified that she had felt the arrest was wrong, but was overruled by Harding. Mitchell admitted under oath that he had not seen Marcus doing anything illegal, but thought he was acting suspicious by asserting his rights. Harding himself invoked the Fifth Amendment 63 times during his deposition. The trial was scheduled for September 2024, but it never happened. In July, Lakewood's insurance carrier reviewed the evidence and contacted the city attorney with a stark message: settle immediately, or face catastrophic punitive damages that could bankrupt the municipality. The body camera footage alone was devastating. Shown to focus groups, jurors expressed outrage at Harding's conduct and sympathy for Marcus. The statistical evidence of racial bias was irrefutable. The text messages were indefensible. Most damning of all was the simple fact that Harding had never made a 3-minute phone call that would have prevented everything. The insurance carrier's analysis estimated potential compensatory damages at $1.5 million and punitive damages potentially reaching $15 to $20 million. A jury would be furious, and federal judges rarely overturned large civil rights verdicts in cases this clear-cut. On August 3, 2024, the settlement was finalized. $3.7 million to be paid jointly by the city's insurance and the police department's liability fund. It was one of the largest civil rights settlements in Washington state history for a single false arrest incident. But money was only part of the price extracted. Officer Derek Harding was terminated on February 15, 2024, exactly 21 days after the arrest. The termination letter cited violation of department policies, failure to follow proper identification procedures, dishonesty in claiming a 911 call existed, and conduct unbecoming an officer. The Pierce County prosecutor, facing public pressure and clear video evidence, filed criminal charges: false imprisonment, official misconduct, and malicious prosecution. Harding's attorney negotiated a plea agreement to avoid prison time. He received 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service to be performed at a civil rights organization, and a permanent prohibition from working in any law enforcement capacity anywhere in the United States. His post-certification, the state credential required for all police officers, was permanently revoked by the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. His pension, which would have provided $4,200 monthly after retirement, was forfeited under state laws governing officer misconduct. Officer James Mitchell received a 60-day suspension without pay and was demoted from patrol officer to administrative duty, processing paperwork in the records division. Officer Samantha Rodriguez received a written reprimand for failing to challenge the arrest more forcefully, though investigators noted favorably that she had attempted to de-escalate. Chief Robert Carlson, facing intense pressure from the city council and community activists, announced his resignation in July 2024, 6 months after the incident. His retirement statement mentioned new challenges, but everyone understood the real reason. Tanunders. The Department of Justice consent decree came down in October 2024, 8 months after Marcus's arrest. Federal investigators had found that the Lakewood Police Department had engaged in a pattern and practice of discriminatory policing, particularly in how officers conducted investigatory stops of black residents. The mandated reforms were comprehensive and expensive. Every officer would be equipped with body cameras that automatically activated during any citizen contact, with footage uploaded to independent servers beyond department control. An independent civilian oversight board with subpoena power would review all use-of-force incidents and discrimination complaints. Officers would undergo implicit bias training quarterly, not annually. The disciplinary process would be completely transparent, with public reporting of all sustained complaints. Most significantly, the consent decree required that any officer who accumulated more than 3 substantiated complaints of bias-based policing would face automatic termination. No more internal affairs investigations that cleared officers despite mountains of evidence. No more 17 complaints dismissed without consequences. The department would submit to 5 years of federal monitoring with an independent auditor reviewing compliance and reporting directly to a federal judge. Marcus used a portion of his settlement, $500,000, to establish the Williams Civil Rights Foundation, a nonprofit providing free legal assistance to victims of police misconduct who could not afford representation. The foundation accepted its first case 3 months after formation. His career with the FBI not only survived, but flourished. He was promoted to Assistant Special Agent in Charge, overseeing the entire Civil Rights Division for the Pacific Northwest. His new role included training law enforcement agencies across the region on constitutional policing, implicit bias, and de-escalation. The body camera footage from January 25, 2024, became mandatory training material. Every new FBI agent class watched it at Quantico. Police academies across the country incorporated it into their curricula. Marcus personally provided commentary at many of these sessions, standing in front of rooms full of law enforcement officers and delivering a simple message: the badge does not make you immune to bias. The uniform does not make your assumptions facts, and the law does not care about your pride. It cares about your actions, and those actions are being recorded. Derek Harding, meanwhile, found work as a security guard at Lakewood Town Center Mall, earning $12.50 an hour. His duties included monitoring shoplifters and directing customers to restrooms. His law enforcement career, built over 12 years, had been destroyed in 43 minutes by his arrogance, his prejudice, and his refusal to make a simple phone call. Marcus eventually got that coffee with his sister. They went to a different shop, in a different neighborhood. Angela asked him if he was angry, if the experience had changed him. He thought about it before answering. "It changed what I know is possible," he said. "I've investigated 100 cases like this. I've seen the videos, read the complaints, interviewed the victims. I always believed them. But knowing and experiencing are different things. Now I know, personally, what it feels like to tell the truth and not be believed, to show proof and have it dismissed, to be powerless while wearing a badge of my own." "And the settlement?" Angela asked. "The foundation?" "Justice," Marcus said simply, "isn't just about punishment. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to the next person." Harding lost his job. That's accountability. But if the system doesn't change, there's just another Harding waiting behind him. The Williams Civil Rights Foundation handled 63 cases in its first year. 41 resulted in settlements or policy changes. The body camera footage of Marcus's arrest had been viewed over 15 million times online, sparking national conversations about racial profiling, police accountability, and the importance of actually verifying claims before making arrests. Officer Derek Harding became a cautionary tale, his name synonymous with the costs of bias-based policing. His 43-minute encounter with an FBI agent had cost him his career, his pension, his reputation, and his future in law enforcement. It had cost the city of Lakewood $3.7 million and federal oversight of its police department. But the price, Marcus understood, was not nearly high enough to account for all the people Harding had profiled, arrested, or harassed over 12 years. People who did not have FBI credentials, who could not fight back, whose complaints were dismissed as unfounded. Justice, he knew, was not just about one case, one settlement, one destroyed career. It was about changing the system that had allowed Derek Harding to thrive for 12 years before finally, inevitably, targeting the wrong person. The person who could prove, beyond any doubt, that the emperor had never had any clothes at all.